Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles. Let me turn my volume down a little bit so that you guys can understand what's going on and not hear my intro music again. Hey, life is crazy. Hey, my name is Emmett Muckles, by the way. This is the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I'm doing a quick video. Let me bring up some things because I have a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And if I can get the page right. So I'm looking away from the camera because I have another monitor over here that shows what I'm doing. Anyway, please, if you guys are on YouTube or you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, or you're coming directly to the website, because I usually put what is that thing called? I usually put the podcast embedded into the website itself so that you guys can have a medium for actually downloading and listening to it if you're not aggregated with iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever podcast downloads you get. But, you know, a couple of months ago, I did this blog post about being financially obese. And I just want to kind of recap about that because I just went through some things. So I paid off all these bills, right? And then last summer, I kind of balled out of control on experiences, which means I traveled a lot and, you know, overextended myself where I was uncomfortable, not like, you know, we typically do it in this country. So I ran up about $5,000 in debt. And so, you know, I was paying on it. I was like, I'll get to it. Finally, it started nagging the crap out of me. And I paid the rest of it off. But right before, about a month before I did that, I went on one of those websites that tell you what your credit rating is. And mine was like in the 600s. And then they said, you know, they give you a way to figure out how you can improve your credit score. So one of the things that I did was I did a little test and said, okay, if I pay this off and I take care of this, what happens? So my credit score jumped by over 100 points by just paying off this one bill that I had. I don't have any other credit cards or, you know, just frivolous. What I do practice is I take all my little bills that I have and I put them on a credit card. That way I can track my monthly outpouring of cash in like a one simple glance. And here's the other thing that does for you. If you can afford, or if you have the ability to take your bills and put them on a single credit card and pay it off every month, is A, keeps your credit stable and nice. B, what it also does is it gives you a one visual for what's outgoing, what's incoming. You can see changes, you can track changes, you can do it easier than you would if you had to pay this bill over here and that bill over there. You know what I mean? Also with that, my bills are never late because they automatically go to a credit card. Because I had one instance a long time ago where I mailed in a payment and for some odd reason it didn't get there, which caused a freaking snowball effect of slight financial hardship. It just pissed me off more or less. But, you know, you live and you learn and you adjust your life accordingly so that you can make strides towards the things you want to get done. All right. So here's my whole thing. I was in Wisconsin this weekend in the Midwest. I had to teach at a college about solar. I had to teach some graduating students. I was a guest lecturer about the advantages of commercial, industrial, and residential solar applications for these individuals. And you know, so we hung out a little bit. My wife accompanied me, and we hung out, and I realized something about Wisconsin. First of all, I'm a minority in Wisconsin. That is just is what it is. But I had a great time. You know, I went to see an improv comedy show. I taught the class, made some contacts with some great young people. Hopefully I inspired them that they can be there at the point in their life where they literally can determine their outcome right now. They can make choices that will benefit them in the long run. It will be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but it will be fruitful for them in the long run. And it can be fruitful for other people. One thing I told them was like, you know, don't go out to look for a job. Go about creating a job for yourself and for other people. You have the wherewithal and the networking, you know, just in the class that I was teaching. If they were to pool their resources and their talents, it's crazy what they can get done. But one thing about the Midwest is we are some big people. You know, I'm kind of skinny right now because I haven't been to the gym in about a month and a half because it's warm. But I started thinking about financial obesity because I was at this point in my life almost 10 years ago, coming up on the anniversary of 2008 at the end of the year when everything went to hell in a handbasket for the economy and financially and the housing market. Everything kind of fell apart. So I said, let's revisit this financially obese American. And what I mean by that is that we're just carrying too much weight financially, where we have too many credit cards. We have cars we don't need. We buy stuff. And this really was not a factor in the 80s because it was just not a thing. People were just going by doing what they're, you know, doing their daily thing. And they were not exposed to so many things as they did when the internet came in the 90s. When the internet came in, I just heard this fact that we kind of had this materialism explosion in the 90s around the time that the internet came to fruition. If you look at today, you know, we have people who are living in houses that are far bigger footprints than they actually need. I mean, listen to this. Listen. It's need versus want. Here, let me get my Michigan hat right. Need versus want. And oftentimes we go after what we want versus what we really need. And if we could scale it back just a tad, if we could just scale it back and say, do I need this? Whatever turns you on, whatever catches your fancy, if you just ask that simple question, do I need this? How fruitful will it, how would your life change? How much more savings would you have? How much more control over your life would you have? And I'm going to tell you about this 2008. 2008 was really a time for me because it was my wake-up call. It was me meeting Morpheus in the Matrix, and I'm taking the pill that opened me up, and I was never able to go back to sleep. But let me tell you this. Every once in a while, you start drifting off and nodding. And I'm going to say it like this because, you know, once you get on this journey where you're saying, hey, I am going to live intentionally, I am going to live in the best, most efficient path, and that's the best way I'm going to say it, in the most efficient path that I can, what happens when you get to that level of efficiency? What do you do then? Because most of the time when we go through things, it's the journey that excites us. It's the journey. And then when we finally get to the finish line, what do I do now? Oftentimes we go back to that state or regress to the state that we were before we got the journey because we were so involved with the journey. But that's not the key. Ooh, let me take some dust off there. What is really and truly dire to you is to stay on the path, is to augment the path. So now that you've paid your bills off, now that you have you can save some money, you can save a portion of your income, you're living on less than you make. What do you do now? Do you just keep stuffing the money away? No, you do have to enjoy your life. There are some things that you want that you can entertain responsibly, where you're just not willy-nilly making it rain on yourself and your friends and your family. You have to have a level of decorum when you're when you reach your finish line or when you're even approaching it. Because when you're approaching it, you start seeing daylight and you have a tendency to regress. That's where this financially obese America comes into play, because we're not only heavy as far as body fat content, but we're heavy in debt still. There's a little known thing here. You know, they say when the gas prices fell below like $3 a gallon, below $2.50 a gallon, that truck sales went up. SUV sales went through the roof, which means, you know, everybody got frugal when things dictated, but then they went back to their old ways as soon as they saw a little daylight. The thing about it is to stay the course, because later on you're going to have so much more benefit because of what you've gone through and tailoring your life to a level of efficiency of need versus want, that now you can live your life to experiences. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened to me. So I'm on my second marriage. So this is when I was married to my former wife. And, you know, I realized something that, you know, we were overextended. We were overextended about a couple of $1,000s a month. So I had all these bills, and you can see it here on the emmettmuckles.com, where you can also download the podcast. You can see it on Stitcher and iTunes as well. But I've listed out some of the things that I had, you know, costing me about $5,000 a month, and I was not making at my day job $5,000 a month. And when I say day job, that's because I had a day job, and then I had a small company that I personally ran myself on the evenings and weekends that generated a decent amount of income, but I never was able to keep it because it was flowing out. And then at one point when I did my taxes, I was like, this is just not sustainable. And I changed my mindset. It didn't resonate well with my family. They thought I was crazy. And I was just trying to say, hey, we're not looking at our finances. We're not looking at ourselves and our future. So I'm looking out. And some people don't like change, or they don't like the way you change, or me. So it was a little bit rough. Anyway, we moved forward a couple of months, and I get laid off from my day job. So I was laid off for almost a year, but I was able to maneuver because I had this company, and I was a hustler. I was just out there doing whatever was necessary legally to provide for my family and I. But during that time, I had an epiphany that, you know, when these bill collectors were calling me, I couldn't even remember why I owed them money. I couldn't remember what it was that I bought that I owed this money towards. And trust me, I had probably at least $60,000, $70,000, and I might be exaggerating, but it was at least $30,000 that I had of just open credit. And most of that was maxed out, or it was really at the high limit. And I was just paying all these minimums and just getting jacked on fees. I was like, this is not sustainable. Long story short, when I got back to having a day job and my other gig, I systemically went about paying everybody off and made a pledge to myself that I would never have a debt that I can't pay off, excluding a house, because a house is just a really big bill. Excluding the house that I couldn't pay off when I was ready to. Like if I said tomorrow morning, I have this debt, I'm going to pay it off. I want to be able to go to the bank, grab the money, pay the bill off, and be done with it. Once you set that in place, that changes the whole landscape, because now you have to move strategically when you get your income in your life. You can't just, oh, cool, we got some money, let's go hang out, let's go do this, let's go do that. There's going to be a lot of times where you're just sitting reading a book, and I had to look at my life and say, where's my money going? And I started shedding that obesity, that financial obesity, to where I began to get fit. Now, this has happened a couple of times, and I have to check myself when it happens. So I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm doing good. I got some money in the bank. What are we going to do next? Ooh, I think I want, ding, hear the word, want. and I rationalized why I can go get it. That's the other problem, is rationalization of your wants versus saying, do I really need this? Is this going to benefit my life? Now, one thing that I do kind of diverge from is experiences. I like to purchase experiences now versus just going out and buying arbitrary things, trinkets of your life that ultimately go into your garage or basement and you end up selling for nothing, pennies on the dollar 10, 15 years later, or just giving away. So, I look at that now. I look at the space that I'm in and see if it's too cluttered. Basically, I'm just shedding that financial fat, because as we get older, things can happen and you need a reserve. It doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, or 40, or 50, or 60. At some point, you're going to need a nice lump sum of cash, particularly if you own a house, because that sucker's a money pit. The one I'm in now, money pit. Let me get off this thing here. Just want to show you some guys. So this is one of the things. Whoop. Ego must go. So that's part of it. We get things because our ego is telling us, you must have this. And it's not you have to have it, because it doesn't augment your life dramatically. It doesn't augment your health. It doesn't augment your safety. It's just for you not to be bored. And that's one of the big things that get you when you get to this status where you've paid some things off and you're seeing daylight, or you've paid them off and you see daylight. You have a tendency to get bored. In those instances, I say go find a hobby, particularly if you can find a hobby that makes you some money. That's even better. But you have to check yourself, because that situation I was in, it really changed my life. It changed my life so much that, I went through a divorce. I moved like 300 miles away from where I was. My life just changed. But because I was in a position to do some things financially, I did it with such ease that it was a no-brainer. I had the means to do something. If my car breaks down, I have the means to get it fixed. If something happens in my house, I have the means to take care of it and not put it on a credit card if I don't want to. Sometimes you can say it might be frugal. It might be beneficial for me at this time to just put this on a credit card, pay it off before the 30 days is up so I don't accrue the interest. And every once in a while, I do something like that and get lazy. And then I say, yeah, I'll get to it. And then I see maybe 2 or 3 months of interest that is piled up. And I said, that's money that I just basically gave away. So, and I look around the country now, and I travel a lot, and I see all these big cars. I see, people just spending money like like they have a well that just rains money. Because I freaked out. I drive a car that's 10 years old, and I'm happy with it. I'm good. And it gets great gas mileage too. I'm good. And every once in a while, I'll be riding with my wife or something, and I'll go, ooh, I like that new Dodge Charger. She goes, you remember what you said? And I'm like, what did I say? She says, you don't like payments. And I don't like payments. As far as subscriptions, and that's what it is. It's a car subscription. I don't want to pay $400-600 a month just for the payment, then probably another $200 to $400 a month for insurance. That's absolutely crazy to me now. But most of my life, I would have been all over that. When I was a younger person, I would have been all over that situation, but not any longer, because it just doesn't make any sense. And I really can't say it comes from anywhere specific, because it's part of our culture. It's part of our culture to want bigger, stronger, better, faster, newer, so that we can impress those who are, outside of these eyeballs or your eyeballs. It's important for you to understand that be safe and content with yourself. How can your life be the easiest? And that's what it comes down to. Make your life easy by living below what you make. And that is my biggest thing, is just spend less than I actually need to. Just because I got a check doesn't mean I have to spend the whole thing. I need to put some away, because we in America are probably the lowest of savers throughout the world. We suck at it. And that's because they're always just psychologically beating us up, saying, you're nothing without buying this new cell phone, without buying this new car, without buying this new motorcycle, without buying this new toy, a boat. You know, I had a coworker say, hey, we bought a house now. Now we have to buy a boat. No, you don't have to buy a boat. You do. That's a luxury. Think about it this way. Everything for me comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the base level, you can breathe, you're healthy, you have some food to eat, and then you move up, you have safety, you have love, you have things like that. Everything outside of that, you being able just to exist as you are, is a bonus. Bonus. So, let's step back a moment. Let's not be piss poor. Let's be abundant. The world is yours. The world is actually yours. So with that, I don't want to rant too long, because I'm already at the 21 minute mark. Go to the emmettmuckles.com. Somewhere here, I'll put something here. Leave a comment. But what I really need you guys to do is go to iTunes and look up The Billionaire Lifestyle LLC. And please rate the podcast. You will see it here. Let me see. I have to open up my iTunes. Hope you don't see anything freaky. Give me 1 second here, and I'll open up my iTunes so that you guys can see my podcast and how cool it is. I've been working on it, and the podcast is The Billionaire Lifestyle. It is not about money, actually. Even though I'm talking about money, it is not about that. And I'm always looking for guests to come on to interview, because that's what I do on the podcast primarily, is interview guests, people who are following their dreams, following their passion, making their life theirs, designing their own life, making their own reality, and doing good stuff for themselves and their family. Oh, there we go. So remember, the world is yours. A lot of influence outside your eyeballs tell you contrary, but the world is yours. So here, we can see this. If I can make it come over here. I'm having problems here. There we go. Boom, the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Look at that. It says I'm not subscribed to my own podcast. Yes, actually I am. But you can go here. You can download. Please leave me some stars, rate, and review the podcast. That would be great. And until next time, as the Beatles said, I keep doing it the wrong way. Let it be. Till next time. Go live the billionaire lifestyle. Come to emmettmuckles.com or the Billionaire Lifestyle LLC. Download it on iTunes and Stitcher. And I am here for you. Till next time, this is Emmett Muckles. Peace out.